All right, and welcome back. So today we are going to be talking about another way to solve quadratic equations. This time we're going to go through a process called completing the square. This is going to correspond with section 8.8 in your guided notes. Please have them out and let's begin. So we've already learned to solve quadratic equations by using square roots, but this only works if the quadratic expression is a perfect square. Now remember that perfect square trinomials can be written as perfect squares. So if we had x squared plus 8x plus 16, we can factor that and write it as the whole quantity x plus 4 squared. Likewise, if we had x squared minus 10x plus 25, we can factor that and write that as the quantity x minus 5 squared. If you have an equation of the form x squared plus bx, you can add the term half of b squared to make a perfect square trinomial. This makes it possible to solve by using square roots. So let's complete the square of x squared plus 12x to form a perfect square trinomial. Then we're going to factor. So we start out with x squared plus 12x. We have to identify our b value. Our b value is going to be, it's going to be 12. So our b value is going to be 12. We'll take half of our b value and square it. Half of 12 is 6, and we square it, and that's 36. Now we're going to add 36 into our expression. So x squared plus 12x plus 36. And now we have a perfect square trinomial. And we can factor it as x plus 6 squared. Now, you're probably thinking, whoa, we added 36. We didn't do it on both sides. We don't really have the same thing. Aha, that's a great observation. We're talking about the process of how to complete the square. Soon we're going to be talking about how to adapt it into an actual equation. So let's use another example. Let's complete the square of x squared plus 7x, again, to form a perfect square trinomial. And then we're going to factor. So we have to identify our b value. Well, the b value is 7. It's the coefficient of our x term, our linear term. We're going to take half of our b value and square it. Well, 7 over 2, we can square that to get 49 over 4. We're going to leave it as a fraction because fractions are friendly. Decimals, not so much. We're then going to add 49 over 4 on both sides eventually when we have an equation. And now we have a perfect square trinomial. We can change it into x plus 7 over 2, that whole quantity squared. All right, with that in mind, please work on problems 1 through 6 on the guided notes, and then resume when you're ready to find out how to do it with actual equations. All right, so to solve a quadratic equation in the form x squared plus bx is equal to c, first complete the square of x squared plus bx. Then we're going to solve by using square roots. Now, sometimes we have to get our x squared and x terms all by themselves. We might have an equation that could be x squared plus 2x plus 3 is equal to 0. If we're trying to complete the square, we have to move that 3 over. So again, for example, if we had, let's say, x squared plus 3x plus 2 is equal to 0, we'd have to move the 2 over to the other side before we can use the completing the square process. So let's say we are in this setting where we have x squared plus bx is equal to a number, equal to a constant. Let's talk about how to complete the square. Step 1 is, again, we're going to write the equation in x squared plus bx is equal to c. We have to identify our b value. This is our x squared and our x on one side of the equal sign with a constant over on the other. So far, so good. We're in the correct setup. We're going to find half of b and square it. Well, our b value is 10. So we're going to take half of b, so half of 10, which is 5. We're going to square it, which becomes 25. Now is when we're going to add it to both sides. So notice how we are now adding 25 on both sides of our equal sign. This is why we started to practice without an equal sign. So we end up with x squared plus 10x plus 25 is equal to 1. Now we can factor the perfect square trinomial that's on the left. X squared plus 10x plus 25 is going to factor into x plus 5 squared. A good checkpoint for you. Notice how we have x plus 5 squared. We found half of b. Half of b was 5. So if you're able to find half of b, that should be a visual checking point for you. Make sure that half of b is inside your parentheses that are being squared. Just a little heads up for you. That can be a visual checking point for you. Now we're going to take the square root of both sides. So we take the square root of x plus 5 squared and the square root of 1. So we end up with x plus 5 is equal to plus or minus 1, because 1 happens to be a perfect square. And now we're going to write and solve those equations. We're going to have x plus 5 is equal to 1, or x plus 5 is equal to negative 1. As we solve, we're going to get that the solutions are x is equal to negative 4, or x is equal to negative 6. So our final answers are negative 4 and negative 6. Awesome. Completing the square can be fun. It can be a little bit intense, so please just make sure we're diligent and we're keeping track and staying organized as best as we can. So let's go practice. Let's go work on problems 7 through 10 on the guided notes. Y'all are doing really, really well. Keep up the great work. You're working super hard. Keep making yourself proud. And let me know if you have any questions. And I'll talk to you soon.